Hello and welcome back. All right, we are now going to set up our preferences for ACR. And you're probably tired of hearing me say this, and I promise it will be the last time. Setting up your preferences ahead of time will allow you to be, that's right, more productive and streamline your personal workflow. Plus, setting up preferences allows you to customize the software to work for you instead of you working the software. And I'm going to make this as quick and painless as possible. That way we can move into some more fun type of lessons and begin editing our photos in ACR. So let's go ahead and get started. In order to access your ACR preferences, you're going to go into Bridge and select it from here. We're going to go up to Adobe Bridge if you're on a Mac, and you're going to select Camera Raw Preferences. And I believe if you're on a PC, it's located in the Edit menu. So make sure you select Camera Raw Preferences and not Preferences. Once you do, you're going to get the Camera Raw Preferences dialog box, and then you can go ahead and set it up for your own personal workflow. In the General section, we have a couple options here. You can select ACR to save those edits that you apply to an image either in a separate file known as a XMP file, or you can save the editing settings that you apply to it directly in the original RAW file or even the JPEG file. So why would you want to do that? Well, let's say your original Camera Raw file becomes corrupted and you applied a lot of custom edits to that particular image. Well, those edits are going to be gone along with the original, but if you make a copy of that original Camera Raw because you have a data management workflow in place whereby you back up your images either on location or off location or both, you still have the original RAW file, but you don't have those edits. Well, if you save those edits to a second separate file and you're backing up those files as well, then you can apply that XMP file to the original RAW file. But you do have to manage two separate files now versus one. So personally, I just use Camera Raw database, and I have a data backup system in place whereby I back up the original with the edits off-site. That way, if the original on my computer gets corrupted, I still have the original RAW file with the edits in a place located off-site, and I use Backblaze to upload those files automatically on a daily basis, so I don't have to worry about using a separate XMP file. So it all depends on your data management workflow and how you back up your images. Next, we have Apply Sharpening To, and you can apply your sharpening edits to all the images or preview images only. I have mine set up to all images, but if you just want to have that sharpening applied to the thumbnails, you can select that option here. Next, we have Default Image Settings. So if you want to let ACR automatically apply tone adjustments, then you can apply that by turning this setting on. Personally, I'm not a big fan of letting ACR make creative decisions for me, so I do not have that turned on. And the same with auto grayscales. When converting to grayscale, you can let ACR make those decisions for you. Or if you want to make those decisions yourself, then just make sure this is turned off. Now, these next two are automatically enabled by default, and they can have a huge impact on the speed and the production of your workflow, and here's how. We have Make Defaults Specific to Camera Serial Number and to Camera ISO settings. So why would you want to do that? Well, let's say you make specific type of edits to every image, and you do so based on the ISO. So for example, you shoot at ISO 1600 and you do noise reduction for that particular ISO setting, but you also do noise reduction for images shot at ISO 3200. Well, those two noise reduction settings are going to be different for 1600 and 3200. Plus, if you use an older camera, the settings may be different for that older camera versus a newer camera. So you can set it up to apply a specific type of edit based on the camera serial number and the camera ISO setting. So instead of having to go in and apply these edit settings manually, you can allow ACR to do them for you. So it streamlines the workflow because you already know how you want to do your edits for a particular ISO setting and a specific camera model. And instead of having to go in and do those manually, you can let ACR do it. So I really love using these options here. All right, so down here we have camera raw cache, and from here you can purge the cache, and the cache is basically built up from the previews or the thumbnails that are created once Bridge goes into that folder of images. It will save them in a location of your choice, and there is a default location as well, but you can change that if you want, and you can also set the maximum size of that cache as well. So if you're running low on hard drive space, you might want to purge your cache because if it is set at 100 gigabytes, it might be using up that full 100 gigabytes of hard drive space, and you can free it up by purging the cache. But before you do that, just know that anytime you go back into a new folder, then Bridge is going to have to recreate those previews or those thumbnails, and then it will start adding that information back into the cache folder. But it's a good trade-off if you're needing an extra 100 gigabytes of space or whatever your maximum setting is. That's a good way to free up some space because maybe you have some folders that you did from last year that you no longer need to go into. There's no need to have that information or those previews in your hard drive if you no longer need to access them. All right, so next we have DNG file handling. And if you use DNG files, then you have a couple of options. If you don't use DNG files, then you can ignore this section. So basically, with the DNG file, you're going to ignore the sidecar XMP files if you have created those originally from the original RAW files. Or you can leave it unchecked if you want your DNG file to use the sidecar XMP files that were created instead of the information saved within the DNG file itself. You can also change the embedded JPEG previews in that DNG file to either change from a medium-sized preview or a full-size preview. You can also use ACR to open up JPEG and TIFF files within it, so you can edit those types of file formats within ACR, and by default you should have automatically open selected, and then that will allow you to edit your JPEG files in Adobe Camera Raw as well. And that's something that I like to do because there are some edit settings within ACR that I prefer over the options directly in Photoshop. Now, if you have a graphic processor that is being automatically detected by ACR, it's going to be listed down here for you automatically, and this option will be automatically checked. Now, I did have an error message here, and simply by turning it back on, it's located the graphics processor again, so then I can take advantage of increased performance by using this. If your graphic processor is not compatible with ACR, then it's going to give you a little message here telling you that it's not available or there was an error, and then you won't be able to take advantage of that extra performance boost. All right, so that's it. Once you have all your Camera Raw preference settings selected, go ahead and click OK to save that to the Camera Raw preferences, and chances are you'll never go back in there again unless you need to purge your cache or maybe you want to change one of the settings. All right, we're now done with preferences. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look at the ACR interface and get a quick overview of where everything is located.